Ed's Bigfoot. Final chapter. You got owned. Eddie was sleeping in his tent when suddenly he heard Double D and the other kids scream horror. Eddie's eyes widened in shock and he jumped out of bed. Eddie peeked out of his tent. Minutes later, Eddie began to hear loud footsteps coming towards his tent. The footsteps were so loud that the ground was vibrating. Ed, is that you? Eddie asked worriedly. The footsteps was now near his tent. All right, Lumpy, you can quit now, Eddie replied nervously. Suddenly, a large shadow appeared outside the tent. Eddie's eyes widened in fear and begged Seven to sweat everywhere. The shadow figure then reached his hand out. Eddie covered his eyes with his hands. A few seconds later, Eddie opened his eyes. The shadow figure was gone. Eddie took a deep breath of relief. Suddenly, Eddie was grabbed by his neck by a large hand and pulled him out of the tent. Eddie was picked up to the creature's head. It was Bigfoot. Eddie was shaking like leaf. The Bigfoot let out a huge roar. Eddie was blown away by the roar. Someone help me! Save me from the Bigfoot! Eddie shouted panically while crying. Suddenly, the Bigfoot started laughing happily. Eddie's eyes widened confused. Suddenly, Eddie began to hear tons of kids laughing in the distance. Eddie looked over the Bigfoot's shoulder and saw all the kids coming towards them. Eddie's face turned from horror to angry. What the hell is going here? Eddie asked angrily. You look like you just got pranked, Eddie. Oh, Ed, I think he's had enough now, Double D replied sarcastically. The Bigfoot pulled out his switch and pushed it. Suddenly, the Bigfoot was transformed into Ed. Eddie fell to the ground. What the? How did you do that? Eddie shouted annoyed. It was simple. Let me explain. You were going to prank everyone. However, you were the one that was getting pranked, Buster. When you sent Ed into the woods to put on that cheap suit, I had a new invention that allows you to transform into any creature you want. So I gave Ed the device to Ed. When you sent me to give Ed the costume. Pretty clever, huh? Double D replied sarcastically. Ed laughed happily. Why, you little no good, Eddie muttered angrily. Hey, look. The dork pissed his pants, Kevin replied while laughing hysterically with all the other kids laughing with him. Eddie looked down at his pants and he finds out that he pissed his pants. Eddie's face turned red in embarrassment. Then all the kids started laughing. Screw you all, I'm out of here, Eddie shouted angrily. Eddie ran off into moonlight.